Y'all ready for this? No, I'm already recording.
Wow. Do the audio part that you just did again.
I just did.
No, do it again.
They caught half of it. That's good
I
enough.
want to hear the whole thing.
I know you do, but I don't know the whole thing. I was pulling out my inner Marky Mark.
Wow. Yeah.
That was Marky Mark. No, that wasn't Marky Mark. Who was that?
That was...
Didn't he? He did a version of that, had to have done a version of that, or at least maybe laid a track to a remix or something.
Laid down a track to a remix.
Who knows?
Now you're speaking the language.
You know what? Candace, if you're out there, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you know. Please let us know, because I don't remember. That was too long ago.
Sounds like something that they used to play at Chicago Bulls games when I'd go to the game.
Well, they play it at all sporting events, but I don't think they play the version where he's rapping.
Oh.
I could be wrong.
Well,
I usually am.
I hope not.
John, it sounds like you have a cold.
Thanks for bringing that up, Nick.
Well, I'm sure everyone already noticed.
I'm sure
they're all feeling sorry for you. I'm sure even before this is airing, people are probably sending, get well soon emails or even cards.
It will go away.
If they knew where you lived, they'd probably send cards.
It'll go away at some point. Okay, so good question. What are your secrets, or what do you do when you get a cold? Do you have like a process you follow?
I do, and it's going to sound really funny because I am not a huge fan of supplements. I think we've talked about that before. But there is one supplement, actually two technically, if you can consider vitamin C. There's a supplement that my wife introduced me to. She used to do the independent consulting for Shackley, one of those pyramid scheme things.
Yeah.
Shackley is one of the oldest, and they do a lot of supplements. There's one called Nutriferon. It's probably just a placebo. I'm not sure. There's a lot of evidence in medical readings and journals and things like that that talk about even the importance of placebo. I was actually listening to one of the podcasts I was listening to, and they were talking to a doctor who talked about the psychology behind placebo. And even if you tell somebody, hey, I'm giving you a placebo, those people still tend to recover faster or get better faster than someone who's not given anything.
But for some of them, I got to believe it because they don't understand what a placebo is.
It could be. It very well could be. You're absolutely right.
When I think of that, I automatically think of Placebo Street. Wasn't she a skier?
I was thinking of the band Placebo.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, it could be the placebo effect. I'm not sure, but Nutriferon, for some reason, if I take it every day, I get sick a lot less often. And if I do get sick, if I do happen to get a cold or something like that, I recover a lot faster.
Interesting.
So that's kind of my secret. And then of course, just drinking a lot of water and teas and soups and, all of that same old stuff. And then I honestly, because we're on the road so much, John, I rely very heavily on Dayquil and NyQuil. And actually, I won't even go there. I have started moving more towards the Alka-Seltzer. Cold, because they use aspirin instead of acetaminophen, but depending on whether or not I have a fever. But then, of course, if you have a fever, it's not a cold.
That's correct. Well said. Although you could have multiple symptoms displayed.
You could. Absolutely.
I used to be an Alka-Seltzer Plus aficionado, and I can't really...
That was back in the 50s when you were in the advertising agency.
It was plop, plop, fizz time. Yes, back in the 50s.
Oh, yeah. What a relief
it was, actually. So that was kind of my go-to when I was younger, because now I have constant, well, not anymore, but medicated blood pressure stuff. I do not take any decongestants any longer.
That's too bad.
Recommend that, but it's not that big a deal. You know what works for me, or works to keep me from killing myself and others, is Emergency.
Okay.
Have you ever tried that?
I have.
That stuff, I don't know what it is. It's like the silver bullet, I'm sure, I don't know what the dose is of vitamin C, but I've had like flu-ish symptoms. One time we were in Seattle for a meeting, and I just felt terrible. I went to my hotel room, hammered an emergency, went to sleep, and later that day I was brand new.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good.
It's just amazing. But yeah, with colds, it's not as fast because it has to kind of run its course, I think.
Right.
But anyway, so I've been medicating with Emergency as usual.
Well, that's good. Yeah, it's usually between 500 and 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C.
Well,
I think
vitamin
they
C is
say,
water soluble, so you can't really
right,
overdose. You will just poop yourself to death, which you
exactly.
don't
Yep.
really want. I've heard that's not a good way to go.
So James J. Hill, here's a rabbit hole to go
Here
down.
you
James
go.
J. Hill, for those of you who are from the North, may know James J. Hill as a railroad magnate. He was very, very rich, based in St. Paul, Minnesota. You can go actually tour his home. Beautiful home, beautiful mansion.
Well, if it was a shithole, why would anybody want to tour
That's
it?
true. That's very true.
Okay, you didn't have to say
Part
that.
of
That
the
was
tour
almost
is
redundant.
interesting. They talk about his death. John, I want you to guess what he actually died of.
The common cold or vitamin C deficiency.
No.
Oh.
No.
He OD'd on vitamin.
No. It has to do with
He pooped
pooping
himself to
yourself, but he wasn't pooping himself to death. Nope. It wasn't. What is that disease where everyone poops? Dysentery, right?
Dysentery, yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't dysentery. Gangrenous hemorrhoids.
Oh, cut it out.
Nope, not kidding you. It's part
That
of the
would
tour.
be an excellent name for a rock band.
It would be. That's exactly what I thought of when I first heard that. At 12 years old, gangrenous hemorrhoids. That's a great band name.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, opening for the Rolling Stones, gangrenous hemorrhoids.
I'm glad you put that hemorrhoids in there because that just adds to it. It's not hemorrhoids, it's hemorrhoids.
Yes, you have to say it the right way.
Otherwise known as the itching mass of dilated veins on or within one's anus.
Right.
I don't remember why we did that, but in high school we had that memorized from the dictionary. And we would say that to people, you're the itching mass of dilated veins on or within my anus.
Wow. Yeah. That's delightful.
Yeah, we would do things like that. We were a little weird. We're very nerdy. Very nerdy.
Well, I'm glad nothing has changed.
Me too. Yeah. Speaking of nerdy.
Yes.
Yesterday was Friday. Yes, it all kind of blends together. Yesterday was Friday. I went with my daughter on her 4th grade field trip.
You sure did.
You saw the pictures.
Can I just say, I did see the pictures. They were awesome. First of all, Peyton is beautiful. What a sweetheart he is.
She takes after her mother.
Well, and I didn't want to say that, but that's pretty obvious. Because her hair doesn't appear to be thinning at all.
Right. Well, actually, when she was first born, she had a full head of hair, and the nurse looked at me and said, "Thank God she takes after her mother."
No, but she looked like she was having so much fun, and I'm certain it was on the other side of the camera was having some fun as well.
Depends on where we were, but yes, it was a lot of fun. I mean, you're hanging out with a whole bunch of 4th graders. Come on, 4th and 5th graders.
Who doesn't like that?
Right, right. But it was a lot of fun. We went to a lot of different places, got in a wreck.
Oh, whoa, back up.
So and of course, this is another rabbit hole. Sorry, guys. There is definitely, and everyone's definition of this statement is different, and I'm not trying to say it in any or imply anything in any certain way, but there's definitely a difference between an old soul and a young soul. My daughter is definitely a very young soul. We were on the bus, and big charter buses, and there were 2 of them, and we're riding along, and we're going up the mountain to get up to Rock City, which you saw a lot of the pictures from Rock City. Beautiful place. Always wanted to go. Highly recommend if you get a chance. It is really cool. It didn't disappoint.
Yeah, it is cool. Cool.
It was a lot of fun. And that was a 10th of what actually was involved in that entire place, what you saw.
Cool.
So we're on the bus, and coming down the other way, I guess there was a Brinks truck. And he was just over in his lane into kind of coming into our lane a little bit. And our bus driver had to avoid him. Otherwise, we would have part of a Brinks truck, at least, if not anything more than their mirror coming through our front window. Right.
Wow.
So the bus driver moves over, and they're cliffs. They're cliffs on either side. Oh, I just hit my microphone. They're cliffs on either side and with guardrails. And the bus driver just moved over and then boom, hit the guardrail and just kind of scraped up the guardrail. And of course, the bus and all of the other parents driving their cars behind saw that, and they saw all the sparks and the smoke. So it was worse for the people behind us than it was for us on the bus. But it was, or we on the bus, go up and down, up and down. But it was, that was our wreck. It was pretty bad. Everyone else was freaking out. And I'm just like, oh, I don't know if Bob's going to have a job after today.
Oh, no.
But I'm sure I mean, it was fine. He saved us. It was pretty good, and the guardrails held. But the poor bus was scarred for life.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So that was an adventure. But going back to my daughter being a young soul, she was playing Roblox the whole time and didn't even realize we had hit anything. Where all these other kids are freaking out, because they're just sitting there quietly, and which was amazing. I have to say, the bus ride was amazing. The kids were very well behaved the entire time. They were very respectful. It was really a lot of fun. But yeah, and then on the way back down, they were all white knuckle. Everyone was white knuckle. The teachers, the parents, and some of the kids. Of course, my daughter's sitting there playing Roblox, not even caring one bit, with some of her friends who weren't caring one bit. But then the others, when we finally made it down to the bottom of the mountain, they were all thanking the driver, because he made it down in one piece rather than the way we came up.
Wow!
But it was, so you could tell the difference because they were kids, or they were truly freaking out.
So like
they didn't care about the Roblox.
Did he can opener the bus on the guardrail, or I mean,
yes, he did a little bit, not horribly. I mean, the bus was pretty sturdy. And but yeah, there were a few parts. The wheel well took the biggest brunt of it.
Yeah, gonna be some damage.
But otherwise, we did have a lot of fun. We went on a riverboat tour. Then we went to the Incline. This was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The Incline Railway. Saw some really cool things at the top of the mountain up there. And then we went to Rock City, which, like I said, is definitely worth the trip. And I'll probably post some of those on some of our other Instagram accounts once I actually send your stuff or put your stuff up.
Wasn't that a song by Kiss? But that was in Detroit.
Which part?
Detroit Rock City. Yeah.
Detroit Rock City. That's what I kept saying. No one got the joke. Well, and I did pull my great dad joke that only the adults got in the group. Even though my daughter has seen Goonies plenty of times, she didn't even get it. I had to explain it to her. She thought it was funny after I explained it to her. We were in there. They have a fudge shop at the Rock City compound. And we went in, and he had just finished, the guy who was doing the fudge had just finished putting it down on the marble table. So he couldn't do anything with it. He had to let it set up a little bit. So he said, I can't show you any of this, but I can show you the tools that I use. And he walked through all of the different tools. And then he pulled out this big copper pot and said, "This is our copper pot. It's been around since 1972. It's used daily since 1972. And then I looked at him and said, "Did you name it Chester?"
Wow.
But did you get the joke, John?
No, I didn't. I've never seen the Goonies.
Oh, there's a person in the Goonies. He's dead when they find him, but he was a famous explorer named Chester Copperpot.
Wow.
Yeah. And they say it like 10 times during the whole movie.
I
mean,
I have to watch this movie apparently, because I know it's like your number one.
It is my favorite movie. It is, absolutely. Right. I have a lot of number ones, but this one takes the cake.
All right. Chester Copperpot.
But again, the parents got the joke. They all laughed.
They all did.
Even if it was internally, they laughed.
The Goonies.
Most of the parents are my age and have all seen the Goonies. I even had one parent come up to me and say, "I've seen the Goonies like 1,000 times."
Wow. What did you guys do when you were growing up?
We watched the Goonies.
And
Ghostbusters. And
I've seen Ghostbusters seriously
Back to the Future
times, but yeah.
I was sharing on the bus. We were talking about movies. I sat in front of my daughter's principal, who's also one of our neighbors and good friends.
Cool.
And then someone else that worked at the school. And we were talking about all the movies that we used to watch when we were kids and that we wanted to introduce to our kids. But then as we're watching them, we're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they said that. I can't believe my parents let me watch this. And so I told them the story, and Jen will probably get mad at me. I'm sorry, Jen, but it's a really good story about the time her parents mixed up E.T. and Poltergeist. And they took Jen to see, they meant to take her to see E.T. They ended up taking her to see Poltergeist at like 7 or 8 years old.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Still scarred for life. Yeah. She has not let her mom live that down to this day.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, we did something similar. We took Michael when he was 12 or 13 or something like that to see Austin Powers.
Man of Mystery.
What's the one with? What's the one with the fat bastard?
I don't know if that one's the first one or the second one.
It's like the last one, I think.
Third one? Okay.
I don't remember how
Well,
many
Fat
there
Bastard's
were.
been a theme in, I think, all of
I
them.
guess so. I can't remember which one it was, but oh my gosh, we were just horrified by some of the humor once we got. It was
Oh, yeah.
PG-13, and we're thinking, okay,
Yeah.
he's 12 or 30, he's an advanced.
Right.
And Lisa covered her eyes through much of the movie because it was so bad. It was
Yeah.
just not good. So when you're uncomfortable and squirming in your seat and thinking we are such bad parents, yeah.
Right. Well, Goonies is PG.
Well,
Ghostbusters is PG. Now, I think now they would probably make it PG-13.
I think
of those.
I think
Because
Ghostbusters was PG-13.
I don't think PG-13 existed back then.
Really?
I think I saw something talking about how, I don't know if it was Steven Spielberg or someone like that who actually introduced or suggested the PG-13 rating for the MPAA.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, because
So, I think they all
trying
would
to
have been
avoid
PG-13.
they were trying to avoid getting everything laid out as an R.
Relabel. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing how much viewership goes down when it goes from back in the old days from PG to R. It was a huge drop off in viewership.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then some of the R movies should have been NC-17. They were not.
Oh, for sure.
So anyway, what have you done this week? What adventures have you, or what items have you accomplished in your life, John?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's just been so much. No, not really. I had a lot of in-office time, but I also had some time out in the field this week. So I was in,
Good.
just went a long distance to Madison, Wisconsin, which is 25 miles from my house.
I can't believe you drive that much.
It was wow.
Did you drive or did you fly?
Well, I had to stop halfway and get a hotel, but no, I drove. I actually did stay in Madison though. So
again,
yes,
you're staying in Madison a lot. What does Lisa think about
that?
So
here's the deal.
You didn't take her with you, did you?
No, I didn't, but I offered.
Oh, good. At least you offered.
Yeah, but I said you wouldn't want to go to Madison, would you? It's all.
I don't know if that's really an offer or
no. It's called a CYA. That's all you're doing.
There you go. I do that every week. Oh, you want to go to Cincinnati with me? No. You want to go to Indianapolis? No.
Yeah. We have all these exciting places. You want to go to Honolulu? Yes.
Exactly. Well,
pack our stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you and I do not enjoy the Honolulu territory in our jobs.
No.
Dang it. But so it's a two-way street when it comes to, the good fortune of not having to go to airports much or travel long distance much. But of course, then we don't maintain status on the airlines, and same with hotels. So anyway, it's fine. I enjoy travel because I don't expect too much, so I'm seldom disappointed.
Yeah,
but the local stuff, I still don't mind. I hung out at a hotel, but we had meetings, face to face with the rest of the team while we were at the hotel. So it wouldn't have made good sense for me to come home and then have to drive back.
Right. But that's why you have a cold. You can blame it on the team.
Oh,
blame it on the team. Keeps talking. Sorry.
Wow.
Blame it on the rain.
Is that another Goonies reference?
No.
Oh, okay. Could be.
It probably is something from the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
I think it's 90s.
Blame it on the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was that? Who sang that?
I don't know.
Come on.
Candace? Hey, Candace.
Well, Candace will know.
She's not listening.
But she's always.
I thought she was our local music expert.
Well, she is, but we need to bring her live for that, apparently.
Oh. See, we're always screwing up. There's a podcast of screwing up.
Well, but that's what makes our podcast
right. Exactly.
Oh, you know who it was? Oh, for
no, not for Dell.
Milli Vanilli.
It was. You're right. So it really wasn't Milli Vanilli.
Well, it was quote unquote. I did quote with my fingers.
Oh, okay. Hey, John, This is a podcast. They can't see that.
They could too. They know what I'm doing because I say things a certain way. It was Milli Vanilli.
Milli Vanilli. Speaking of has nothing to do with Milli Vanilli. No, not even a comparison to Milli Vanilli. But I do have to make a recommendation. If you haven't yet listened to it, And I know I talk about Dax Shepard all the time in his Armchair
Yep.
Expert podcast, but if you haven't listened to the latest episode with Edward Norton, I would highly recommend it. I have a newfound respect for Edward Norton. Not that I didn't respect him as an actor, but it was a really interesting conversation, and I really liked what he had to say. So if you haven't yet, after you're done listening to ours, the entire thing, don't stop right now. Keep listening.
Are you talking to me or are you talking to
I'm
the
talking
listeners?
to the listeners and you. I mean, you shut down all the time too.
But I could leave.
You could leave.
Okay.
Well, as much as
I'm
I
out,
talk, you
yeah.
probably do, and then just come back.
You are a chattery boy, but I like that, especially when I have a cold.
Yes. Well, you had to pick up the slack when I was, bedridden, so I appreciate that, and you got to talk a lot. So I got a lot to say since then.
You always
not really.
Yes.
I may have a lot to say, but do I really say much?
Please don't make me answer that.
We'll unpack that in the next episode. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
But anyway, I highly recommend listening to that episode. It was really, really good.
So Edward Norton, what's your favorite role for him?
Oh, that's so tough. American History X was phenomenal. But its Fight Club is still really, really high up there.
Yep.
He's got a new movie out, which is why he was on the podcast, that looks really, really good too, where he plays a Tourettic police detective. So he's a police detective in the 50s who has Tourette's.
Wow. So like,
if there was no one on earth that could pull it off, he could.
Oh, there's no question he could pull it off. I do like him. He is quite talented. I've seen him in several things, and of course, the one I could think of at this moment was Fight Club. But he was just very good in that. So
yeah,
it was interesting and enjoyable to see him. But he has a lot of intricate roles that he's taken over the time. There's always a little bit of crazy in his roles, it seems like.
Yeah, and then when you listen to him, there's no crazy there.
Well, that's even cooler.
There's he's extremely smart. It was really impressive.
Do you think people say that about us after they listen to a podcast?
Oh God, no.
Huh?
There's no way in hell. They'd probably go, I have lost a lot of respect for those two. I thought they were smart. They faked it really, really well. Now we listen to them. Oh man, I'm shutting this thing down.
Are we talking about PoddiMouths now, or are we talking about Milli Vanilli?
Either. Take your pick.
We're kind of the same. And
we're the Milli Vanilli of podcasts.
You look a lot like those guys.
I do. It's my hair that gives me away right away.
Well, it's the dreadlocks. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're talking about my nose hair, right?
Please, that's disgusting.
I could go a lot further than that.
I blame it on the rain.
That's why we're PoddiMouths.
That's why we don't do a camera broadcast.
Exactly. Now, speaking of camera broadcasts, I have been listening to a lot of Joe Rogan lately too.
Joe Rogan.
And have you ever listened to Joe Rogan?
I have.
He's an interesting character.
He is interesting, and he's kind of I just like, he says stuff that I would say probably, or ask questions that I would ask. He's kind of the everyman, but he's also, he has a lot of insight in many different areas, it seems like.
Yes. Yeah. And the topics aren't just like, one week he had Edward Snowden.
Yep.
And then a couple weeks before that, which I just listened to, he had the fighter pilot that actually had a run-in with real UFOs. And he had him on and talking about it. But then the next week he'll have a UFC fighter. It's like, wow, it's everywhere. I think he had, who's that astrophysicist that's really popular? Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, yeah.
Is he an astrophysicist? Or is he I don't remember. But he's a really big scientist, famous scientist. He had him on, and that was an interesting conversation too.
And that's to his credit.
Yes. And he's kind of the godfather, I guess, he's not the first one, but he's the one that really changed the face of podcasting.
Yeah, he really had a lot to do with it. And he does, you and I have talked about this before, that he does quite well.
Have we talked about this before?
Well, not on the air.
Okay.
We talked about personally when we were face to face. I know we're not supposed to say that anymore, but
but now we have to.
We talked about this before, but we did.
Yeah, I know, right?
You and I discussed. You and I discussed it face to face one time, how financially he has been rewarded for podcasts, and but He has and it's weird because we have about the same number of subscribers. No, we don't.
We have a few more.
We're not even close.
Kevin Smith, the director and actor, was on the podcast last. That was the last one I listened to. And he was talking about how big and how influential he is, and how, because the reason Kevin was, well, not the reason Kevin was on, but Kevin is doing and has done a new movie and now is taking it to theaters. And he and Jason Mewes, who plays Jay, so Jay and Silent Bob, it's actually Jay and Silent Bob Reloaded, I think is the name of the film.
Huh.
And so they're going and actually introducing it every time. They're not distributing it like they normally would. They're actually going city to city and making it an event, and then they're answering questions afterwards.
Wow, interesting.
So that's kind of what he was promoting. But he had asked that
Joe Rogan.
Thank you, Joe Rogan, be in the movie, and Joe said no. And he had said it through his agent. And so Kevin Smith said he picked up the phone and called Joe, because he knows him, they're friends, and said, dude, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing this movie? And gave him I just had a heart attack. I was a widowmaker. I could be dead. Why aren't you coming to do my movie? And Joe just said, because I don't want to. And Kevin said, I really respected that. I loved it. I thought that was Joe Rogan in his finest, just being him. And the fact that he doesn't have to.
Well, that's true too.
He can do anything he wants, because he's in such a unique position compared to a lot of other actors.
And you have to give him credit for that too. And it's,
absolutely.
Anybody who enjoys substantial wealth at one point in his or her career, I think, professional athletes, for example, they know that it's coming to an end. And those who live in the moment for that, that immediate gratification, you can kind of tell that they're not going to be in good shape in 10 years or less even.
Right.
So it becomes like winning the lottery for people that don't ever envision themselves as being wealthy. Statistically speaking, like 3/4 of them are broke after they've won the lottery a year later.
Right. Yeah.
It's incredible what the numbers are.
Yeah. I often think about that. What would happen if I win the lottery? And I'm being serious. I'm not being funny about this. What would I do? Would I invest? Would I spend it? How would I handle that compared to some of the people you hear about?
Yep.
Which lose it in a year? And because I'm not horrible with money, but I'm not great with money. So if I had a lot of it, I don't know what I would do. And I would like to think that I would take a chunk, put it in savings, or put it in some sort of retirement. So it was always there. I know.
Yeah, put it in savings because it pays such a high return.
Right. When I say savings, forgive me, people that are financially sound. I meant by savings in high return.
Yes.
And they are investments, but they are sound investments. They're not.
Yes.
It could be real estate.
Not risky.
I could buy real estate. That would be the smart thing. Buy real estate and rent or hold on to or something like that. Because that's where that's a whole other podcast.
Sure is.
But I would spend some of it. There is no doubt about it. But I would make sure that my family was financially sound for the rest of their life, or at least I'd like to think I would.
Well, it depends how much you win. I mean, if you win $1 billion and after you pay taxes and you end up with
100,000,
with 600 million or something, I could probably live on that. But that's where you hire someone to do that, to manage it for you if you're in that level. But if you win and I had a buddy who won a $1 million scratch off.
Oh wow.
And rest his soul, he is now dead, lung cancer, very sad. But
that's very sad.
But
smoking all that money.
He was a big smoker anyway. So, but that's the thing. He won this thing, and I had called him. It was funny, the juxtaposition, because I called him that week just to say, "Hey, what's up?" And he said, "Well, I'm having a pretty good week." I said, "Oh, that's awesome." He said, "I won $1 million scratch."
Oh wow.
I said, "Shut up." He said, "Well, it's refreshing to know that's not why you're calling, because you need money." I said, "No." I said, "I had no idea. I don't want your money." And we laughed about it, but he gambled all the time. So he lived outside Chicago. So he was on back then the riverboat, and he would go out on the boat and spend all kinds of money. I'm guessing when he won the $1 million scratch off, it was probably, it just evened things up for him if I
Oh,
were a betting
well,
man.
yeah, I guess that's good. I mean, that would be a big chunk of it. I would pay off my house. I would pay off student loans. I would get rid of debt. That would be the first thing I would
Well,
do.
so he went from
Again,
an apartment into a house, bought a house, and
okay.
ended up, I don't know, it was probably a $300,000 house back then, and very nice in the suburb of Chicago, and had no mortgage, and they were all excited. Bought a couple Harleys, and in fact, he kind of got me back into the Harley mindset because he had one for his girlfriend. Oh, he bought her boobs, by the way, too. He did, and
Nice.
he did. After he did that, he said, and she had wanted them, and for years anyway. He said, statistically, I think that it's like 3 months when you do that for a girlfriend that they leave you for somebody else.
Wow.
So yeah, she had bolt-ons, and and so that was all fine. Bought her a Harley. He got one for himself, and he and I actually rode. I came down to visit. He said, "Let's take the Harleys out." I said, "Dude, I haven't been on a bike in, you know, 20 years." He said, "Let's go." So we did, and I'm bitten by the Harley bug. So
Yeah,
that's
it
why I have a
happens.
$30,000 unit sitting out in my garage right now.
That you can't use because of all the snow.
Well, the snow is melting, thankfully, but yeah, there's still some on the ground, and Lisa and I talked about this morning that it's it's supposed to get up to 39, and I'm thinking, I've got enough clothes. I could really bundle up and get on the bike. I just don't want to
Yeah.
give up and I put her to bed for the season. I'm not ready for that yet. It's
Yeah.
too early.
Well, you guys got to come south.
True.
Matt Smolik,
Yeah.
he sent me a picture of his windshield. I couldn't see Matt. I don't know if there was snow there or not, but he's about the same latitude, I guess, as you are.
Yeah.
But he sent that, and he expletive this. And I sent him a picture back because I was on the bus of the hills with all of the golden
Yes,
colors
right.
of the leaves and the sun shining up over the back of it, and it's just beautiful morning, serene picture. And I sent it back, said, "Well, how about this? Is this okay?"
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't
How
hear another
nice of
speak from
you.
him the rest of the day. I
Yes.
think he was
How to
pissed at
win
me.
friends and influence people. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the temperature
Oh,
wasn't
yes, it
much
was.
warmer, I'm sure, but yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, it was only 30
Oh my
degrees
gosh.
when I took that. Yeah, it was cold. It's
Okay,
cold
well
here
then
this
I give
morning.
you
It was
props.
31 when I got up, which is not cold compared to the north. I recognize that, but it's cold for
No, it's
Nashville.
the beginning of November in Nashville, and your average temperature has to be at least in the 50s there.
It
Yeah.
is. Yep.
So
Yep.
there's a big difference temperature wise between the upper Midwest where I am and Nashville. It's a big
Oh
difference.
yeah. Have not I not seen that? This is a different way to phrase it, John. Have I not talked about my coat story? The coat that I brought down from Minnesota, that was a really good coat at 30 degrees. It was so warm in Minnesota, I would have to take it off. But then down here at 30 degrees, I was still freezing. Like I was, it all has to do with the humidity in the air, I believe.
I think that's part of it, but I think there's also a part of you that gets used to wherever you are living.
I agree with
temperature-wise,
that in the grand scheme of things, but this was right after I moved.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't, so
Wow.
I hadn't acclimated yet to this climate. Now, I agree with you 100%. When my mom had passed away, I went and stayed for over a month in Minnesota, having lived down here for several years. And people were complaining about how hot and humid it was, and I was still wearing jeans and a long sleeve T-shirt going, "This is perfect."
That's funny. Yeah, it's a lot of it's perspective, I think, and where you are at the time. But I remember we lived in outside of Denver for a while, and went to visit some friends in Orlando. So we flew in, and it was just instant. What time of the year? I probably summertime.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, true.
When it comes to
It
Florida, it
was
doesn't matter.
incredibly humid, and they picked
Yeah.
us up at the airport. Did not have the air on inside the car, and I swear it was raining inside the car. That humid, and so I said, "Would you please turn the air on?" And they're like, "Oh, sorry, we didn't think of it." Shut up! How can you not know? Yeah. Anyway, that was it's based on your perspective, but I have to say, Chattanooga is beautiful. And
It's
Knoxville
absolutely
too. I
gorgeous.
love Knoxville. It's just
I
beautiful country.
I think so that the Tennessee flag, if you're anyone's familiar with the Tennessee flag, it has it's red with a blue circle, and then it has 3 stars. I think that's how it is.
Okay.
I've been here almost 15 years and I don't remember. I'll probably remember when I'm not trying to think about it. But each one of those stars actually represents the 3 distinct sections of or sides of Tennessee. And you'll hear people, especially in Tennessee, talk about where they're from. And they'll say, I'm from West Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, or East Tennessee.
Huh.
And then they'll say that which city in that section they're from. Each star represents those sections. So right now, Nashville is Middle Tennessee.
Interesting.
And then you'll see mid-state. You'll see when they talk about you on weather, or the news. Middle Tennessee is going to get this, blah blah blah. East Tennessee is going to get that. But they're very distinct in the way they look, and every single part, I swear to you, is gorgeous in its own way.
Huh.
West Tennessee is very flat, but it's a lot of farmland. It's beautiful because of just what you see out there, especially in the summer when you've got crops coming up and things like that. Middle Tennessee, a little hillier. It's really, really nice, really beautiful, very mild compared to either side. And then East Tennessee is mountainous. It has a plateau. And it's not mountainous like Colorado or the Rockies mountainous, but it's the beginning of the Appalachian
Yeah.
Mountains, whatever they call them.
Appalachians.
Yeah.
Yes.
Appalachians. Depends on where you're from.
No, it doesn't.
It really does.
Well, yeah, if you're from a place that mispronounces things.
Exactly.
Yes, which you might be. So I'm looking at the flag, and it's it's like that circle of the 3 stars is kind of off kilter.
No, you're looking at a weird flag then.
No, it's not squared away. It's not, the 2 at the top are not level with one another. They're not parallel.
Well, it's because the 2 at the top are better. No, I'm kidding.
Wow. But it's different. It looks a little bit unusual. So it's like tilted to the right, sort of.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was trying. So I looked at the state itself, and I'm trying to figure, how that all fit. It doesn't.
I don't think it. Yeah, it's not supposed to fit in like that. I
They
forgot
probably
about the
wanted the
blue line. I don't know what the blue line
blue
at the
edge
end means something,
Yeah.
but I don't remember what it
I'm
is.
sure. Well, I imagine it's something to do with the state, of course, but it is a beautiful, and I've experienced a lot of, Nashville, of course, and I've done some time in Memphis, but you're right, to the east, some of the mountainous regions, and we talked about that, where I had, we took a vacation there recently. Oh my goodness, it's just incredible.
Right.
And if you like to ride motorcycles, or just enjoy driving on hilly, windy roads, there is no better place in the country that I've seen so far.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous.
It really is beautiful.
Yep.
So anyway, there's Tennessee.
There's Tennessee,
but pretty country for sure. Chattanooga is very nice.
Yes, yeah, and it was a lot of fun. And I've spent time in Chattanooga, but I've never done Rock City, like I said, and I'd never done the Incline Railway, which were 2 not necessarily bucket list. I've always wanted to, but I could have taken it or leave it. It would not have changed my life. But I was really glad I got to experience it, especially with Peyton.
So the incline, for sure, the Incline Railway, cars, and I couldn't really tell from the picture you had, are they like at an angle?
Yes, when you get on, it's kind of funky because the stairs you're not walking down the stairs, you're kind of walking almost on the peaks of the stairs to get down to your seat. But then when you get up to the top, it's a really steep stairway going out of,
which is cool.
It's
because
pretty incredible.
They designed the cars that way, and it's the same in Galena, Illinois.
Yes,
which is oddly has kind of a similar mountainous area, if you will, or big hills, I guess.
Yes, I had a stepbrother that lived in Dubuque, and we would go there every Easter. Cool. And then, of course, the families, or the moms would go shopping in Galena while the guys went play golf.
And it's the cutest little downtown to shop in, and not unlike Chattanooga. They've got fudge stores and candies and cookwares, and it's just and it gets crazy busy in the summer.
Oh yeah. But when you live in that part of the country where all of Illinois is flat, all of Iowa is flat, but then you've got this little haven right by the river, that's where everyone goes.
It's true. And they come from Chicago and Wisconsin and Iowa,
Hmm.
probably the cities as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Have you ever been to the Field of Dreams?
No, I have not. Is that
Have you?
in Iowa?
That was a neat experience. That actually, so the film set still exists, and I don't know if it is now, but when I was back, I guess 13 or 14, we went, and you can buy some souvenirs. So we bought a bat, which I still have, and a couple of balls, and we actually went out with the bat and ball and played on the field
Oh,
where the
cool.
Field of Dreams was shot.
So tell me, and I may have missed it. Tell me again where it is.
It's in Iowa. It's just north of Dubuque.
Oh,
Dubuque and Galena. Yeah, as you're driving into or going up to Minnesota, you
Yeah.
can, if you take certain back ways, you can actually drive to it.
very cool.
Yeah, it was really neat, and the house is still there, and it looks like the movie.
Sure.
It was crazy.
Well, and that so is it like a museum sort of a thing now, or
I don't know what it is now. Again, this was back in the 90s, and the house was a private residence, but you could go down and walk on the field, and you could go walk in the
Yeah.
cornfield and stuff like that. So, not really a museum. They wanted you to stay away from the house. It's kind of like the Goonies house, to take it full circle. You can walk up to the house, but you can't go into the house necessarily.
Interesting. All
Yeah.
right.
But you can go to the jailhouse in Oregon, where the movie was shot.
Goonies. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the Goonies, and actually another movie that was shot there was Kindergarten Cop,
Oh,
Astoria, Oregon.
wow. Well, that's something to be famous for, the Goonies and Kindy Cop.
That's right.
Wow. Excellent. Okay. Well, wow. We've covered some territory, brother.
Yeah, we didn't even get to the topic we had talked about, not planned for, because the PoddiMouths don't plan.
Good
They just
Lord,
say,
no.
hey, we should talk about this.
Accidentally.
Yeah. What were we going to talk about? It had something to do with car business. It was.
Isn't it on your script? Remember the script I sent you? Oh, I mean, that's
yes,
right. We don't plan.
remember. I remember that script. It's right here.
I can't believe you're pretending like we don't have teleprompters in front of us.
Well, it's because I don't read teleprompters well, because I don't read.
Yes, but we have the Braille teleprompter for you.
That's right. That's right. I tried my phone. I was bringing it up to pull up the article that we were going to talk about.
Yeah.
And for some reason, my Face ID doesn't recognize me when I have a microphone in front of me.
What?
I know. What is with that?
Well, you should have taken the original picture with the microphone in front. Then you'd have to, if you logged in on the road, you'd have to pull out your microphone.
Yeah, exactly. It was about the 7-year car loan. I had sent you an article from NPR.
You did.
About the 7-year car loan and how to watch your wallet and how it's destroying how buyers buy cars. So you said we should talk about that.
Well,
so what do you want? Let's we have a couple more minutes before we have to say goodbye. Yes. But what were your thoughts about that?
So 7-year car loans are simply just an outcome of people wanting to keep their payments down. And that's fine. And that's totally understandable. Right. The problem is several-fold, that there are better ways to keep your payment down. Like, stop buying the extreme luxury version of the vehicle that you want, and instead live with something that's that you is like part way to where you want to end up.
Right.
People tend to buy cars that are much more decked out than they used to be. Lisa's car, when I met her, was a Pontiac Sunbird, a 1982, if memory serves. And it had no air, an automatic on the floor, because she, as we've said, does not drive a manual transmission, but and an AM radio.
Nice.
Because she wanted a new car, which I'm not sure I would have advised her to do that. But to her credit, she did, and got one that was more inspirational for the next one, or aspirational, I should say, rather than, living in the moment and saying, well, I need all these things. And I mean, it had, back in the old days, of course, it had the crank windows, and it was an awesome car. In fact, one of the better front-wheel drive cars I've ever driven in the snow, if you can imagine that.
Oh, I believe, trust me, I would take a front-wheel drive car over four-wheel drive any day.
Well, I would not, but I know how to drive a four-wheel drive, and some people don't. I was in Wichita, Kansas one time, and they had kind of a freak snow/ice storm, And you know who were all in the ditches? 4-wheel drive people.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I I had a 4-wheel drive too, and quite honestly, unless I would say I don't think I ever turned it on in the winter. Maybe one or two times, depending on where
Sure.
I was. Like if I was on ice or something,
Yes.
truly on ice. I used it more when I was in the dirt, just to get myself so I wouldn't get stuck. Other than that, it was 2-wheel drive mode the whole time because you learn how to drive in those conditions, and you know where to be careful. And the front wheel drive just made it so much easier. And part of it was because of all the weight in the front, because it was
That's
on the
right.
engine. And I was driving a big old Tornado, so I had a lot of weight in
Oh
the front.
gosh, awesome car.
A great car.
Yeah,
We've
awesome
talked
car.
about that
So
before, John.
here you go again.
I just had to.
I know you did. I love Tornados and Rivieras, the old Rivieras.
Mhm.
But Riviera, to be front-wheel drive, was late to the party. Tornado was really the first one, and Eldorado
Right.
were the first ones.
Yeah.
So back to the 7 years. What happens then is people go into, they just increase the term. So if you want to lower your payment.
So what? Before you go on, let me. There are a lot of people that don't know that 7 years sounds like a lot of time, but when they go into a dealership, they hear terms like 72 months, 60 months. So let's clarify: a 7-year term is 84 months.
Correct.
So if for those that don't quite put the two and two together and don't want to do the math, it's an 84 month, which the standard right now, I believe, is 72. So now we're pushing up to 84 for most
I
people.
can't believe that's the standard, but okay.
I know the standard when I was, not even when I was getting my car, but the standard back when I was younger was 60 months.
Yes.
So
And that
it's
was
gone
even
up.
kind of stretching it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well,
that was astronomical for a lot of people.
for sure, because and that's really the math behind it. If you want a lower payment, either you have to lower the price, you have to lower the interest rate, or you have to increase the term.
Right.
And so the term has gone from, I mean, it used to be 36 months, and
Yep.
then 48, and then 60, and then 72, and now you have some even 96 on if you get
Mostly
somebody
trucks.
if you get somebody in a highline truck or SUV or whatever to go
Right.
96 months. I'm sorry that I can see that for maybe a Class A RV,
Sure.
if that's going to be your sole residence.
Well, and I don't some of those Class A RVs have loans that go as far as 15 years, even 20
Oh,
years?
yes, they do.
They're almost like a little mortgage.
Because
I think you can get a mortgage on
it
one.
is a mortgage. That's essentially what it is. And so trying to make it more affordable. But what happens in the car business is a little different because the car business has long counted on repeat business. So people buy and then they come back in a certain time frame and buy again. And ideally, it used to be when I started selling Cadillacs, it was often every 2 years. Somebody would come back. If I can't trade at 24 months for 2,000 a year, then forget it. I'm not, and on a Cadillac, that was actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they would change every so often. Then leasing came into the picture again, or came back into the picture, where it was a lot more feasible. And what happens is people then on a lease could change out every 2 or 3 years because you're not essentially paying for the whole vehicle. You're paying for the use of the vehicle.
Right.
So, so the payments are inherently lower with leases, so people could afford nicer vehicles for lower payments. But on a lease, you have a predefined end date, and that is typically 36 months. We just did a 39 month on my wife's car, and that's pretty normal. But I know at the end of 39 months, I'm going to walk away as long as I'm not over in the mileage or I haven't done any damage to the car. I will either walk away or I will get another one typically. You can also buy out the vehicle if you want to, but again, without rabbit holing this part of it, the downside of a longer term loan is it takes you out of the market.
Yes.
So
it hurts the car business and it hurts you.
That's just it. It's not just a downside to you as the owner who engaged in the loan, because you will be in a negative equity position unless you have put huge money down.
Right.
You'll be in a negative equity position until on a 72-month loan, you're going to be at least 60 months upside down.
Yep. And with car values too, the way they are right now, and depending on which brand you buy, it could be longer.
That's correct. But I think there are averages on a 60-month loan, as I recall, it's like 44 months until you reach equity if you put
Yep.
20% down. So
Right.
it's incredible. So it takes you out of the market. Those people who have been used to trading, getting into a new car every 3 or 4 years, they can't unless they have
Right.
substantial money to offset that.
And that's the other downside. And one of the reasons that you and I spoke on one of our very first episodes about leasing, why it's actually smarter to lease for most people, because the average, let's call it turnaround time, the average time that people stay in cars is 3 to 4 years before
Yep.
they trade. So and why would you do a 72-month loan if you're just going to trade the
Because you
car in
think
3
that
years?
I'm going to make payments anyway, and
You think that
I'll
you own
just
the
well,
car.
yeah, yes and no. That's a really good point. You don't own it, the bank does. And if you don't believe me, miss the 70th payment and you'll find out who really owns it
Right. Yep.
because they will take it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of it's kind of an interesting dynamic. But to your point, it's not just bad for the consumer; it's bad for the dealers because
Yep.
that effectively takes you out of the market unless you win the lottery for at least 5 or 6 years. You cannot
Exactly.
afford to get out of that contract. So it's the car business shooting itself in the foot. And just real briefly, it's sort of like when gas went to $4.50 a gallon, and trucks were, oh my gosh, it was a terrible thing. And General Motors and Chrysler said, that's it, we're out of the leasing business, because they lost their
Right.
butts by guaranteeing the future value of a vehicle that's getting 14 miles to the
Yep.
gallon and gas is 4.50. They said they were getting out of the leasing business. And at the time, I wrote an article that just stated how stupid they were to even say that. This is non-financially minded auto people who don't understand anything about the market. You cannot hope to sell a $70,000 truck if you don't have a way to pay for it
Right.
other than a 96-month loan.
Yeah.
So it just
Uh,
pulls people out of the market too
It
quickly.
does, and it's just going to hurt. It's the recession all over again. It's history repeating itself,
And
is
people
what
not
that
paying
is.
attention to history. And that's why
Exactly.
I fight so hard when people try to rewrite history books, because they want to, change what happened. Or, and there are many instances, we don't have to get political about it, but you have to preserve history, because
Yep.
otherwise you're doomed to repeat it.
Exactly. You are 100%. And I wish that's where we could end it, but I want to return to the earlier part of the conversation. We were talking about people getting into nicer cars. I do want to play devil's advocate. I do not disagree whatsoever with what you said, but I do want to play devil's advocate and kind of get the other side of it.
Please.
One of the
Yeah.
reasons I foresee people trying to get into nicer cars isn't the fact that they're necessarily trying to get into nicer cars, but I think a lot of it has to do with two things. One, technology. Technology is a lot smaller. It's a lot less expensive, even though they still charge for it, but it's easier to put it in cars, and cars are a lot smarter than they used to be. Even the lowest end car is going to have technology that your wife's car never even thought of. Even if you took the nicest car in the mid 1980s, the nicest, most expensive, most technologically advanced, it's still not going to have the technology that one of our cheapest cars is going to have, right?
Correct.
So I don't necessarily think it's us trying to move ourselves ahead. It's just the fact that cars have gotten so much smarter and in turn gotten so much more expensive. The second part of that is a lot of it is dictated by the government. So, for example, will you ever get into a car now, brand new, talking about brand new cars? Will you ever see a brand new car without a backup camera?
I hope not.
You can't. It's law.
Well,
Every car after 2018 has to have a
oh, I
backup
didn't
camera.
realize that it was a law. That's awesome. I did
Yeah,
not realize that. But so put it back 30 years or 40 years and say, could you have bought a car without a rear view mirror? No.
right. Or
So,
a mirror. You have to have at least one mirror. It doesn't matter if it's a rear view or a side mirror. You have to have one mirror by law.
well, that's correct. But if it's it is and has been for many years illegal to drive a car that's so equipped, that does not have, like a van with solid doors, that doesn't have any viewing,
Right.
but a passenger vehicle, an automobile, has to have the mirror in the center. You can have the outside mirrors, but you still have to have the inside mirror if it was so equipped. And
Right.
it's you have to have something. You're absolutely right. So that stuff just changes. It replaces that stuff with technology, and so I'm not sure. I believe that per capita, financially speaking, though, Nick, uh, uh, it's that much more monetarily. I think wages have gone up by the same token, and I'm not sure at the same rate, but
Sure.
pretty darn close.
Well, and I do think that article, it hasn't gone up because the article did mention that car prices have gone up. I think it was 5,000 something in the
Yep.
last 10 years, where personal wages have gone up just below
Okay.
4,000.
So it's commensurate
So
at
there
least.
is,
Yeah.
it is close, but there's still the car prices have gone up further and faster than people's
Sure, but if you look
income.
at some of the things, the reasons behind it, if it's safety oriented, I mean, seriously, how much safety stuff do you want in your car? I want all of it. So airbags and side
Absolutely.
impact bags, and for
If it's
sure.
available, I want it. And I think if it were available back in the 80s, I think people would want it as well.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
that's my only point. I don't disagree again with what you were saying. I just want to put that context on it because we have a lot more available to us that we didn't have back then.
That's true, especially electronics and so on, and even electric vehicles these days.
Right.
There are a lot of things that are available that we didn't have, but I think that goes along with it. It doesn't make it. Um, it doesn't mean that now it's cheaper to produce a vehicle, for example, with power windows than it is without.
Right.
Never used to be the case.
Right. And that's very true. And there's some instances too. It was the same with manual transmission.
Sure,
There are some cars with manual transmission now that are more expensive than the automatic.
for sure.
And it's just crazy. And now because it's kind of a niche thing, it's people that really want to have that manual transmission, not because it's economical, just because it's fun.
Well,
It-
and it depends on the vehicle, of course. If you're in a sports car, I'm with you. If you know how to drive a manual transmission, I don't want a sports car with an automatic. Now
right.
that
And
said,
so that being said too, I'm
go.
kind of passionate about this one because I had an old boss, a GM of a dealership who used to run a Ferrari store. And you know why certain Ferraris are older Ferraris are actually worth more than some of the newer ones? Because manufacturers like Ferrari do not produce manual transmission vehicles
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, it's true. And but to so you look at that and say, so come on, what's the deal? Why not? They're actually faster, and them automatic transmissions today perform better than anyone can actually shift them.
Yes, absolutely.
And so you look at the new Corvette, for example, which is sweet,
Yeah,
a mid-engine Corvette. I really would like to drive one. I have yet to do that. Um, but those things with paddle shifters on the automatic transmission, you cannot shift it fast enough or well
right,
enough to provide the performance numbers that they have managed to eke out of an automatic transmission.
right. Or you could just go to a Tesla and not have one and still be faster.
Or you could do that faster. Yeah, for sure, faster.
But you know
It,
so same topic though. One thing that purists have, and the manual transmission is one of it. But someone like me who loves Jeeps, I love the new Jeep. The new Jeep that's out is beautiful, but I still have a tough time. When I was looking at one, I still had a tough time going, there's just too much technology. A Jeep is supposed to be simple. Even my two Jeeps that I had that were 90 or late 90s, early 2000s, they were a little bit too advanced when I first got in there. I still want an old Jeep with just a speedo in the middle and a couple other gauges and a steering wheel and a shifter with no top or a zip up top. I mean, that's to me that's a real Jeep. So I do have problems with certain technologies and making them so super expensive because the Jeeps were never meant to be expensive, and now they're premium vehicles. So it's I yeah. But John, didn't you say we were going to be talking to somebody about Jeeps pretty soon?
Yeah, it's my buddy Mike Osterlink. He is. We're actually. I'm excited about it because, but we're going to interview Mike next week so we can get him on one of the next episodes. But yeah, I have questions for both of you, being Jeep aficionados, about the new Jeep pickup and
The Gladiator?
I think we should. Yeah, I'm sure he is Gladiator. The I don't know where that came from.
I was nice try to make people think you don't know what the Gladiator is.
I want to talk about that, and I think we should also talk about the technology issue, because Jeeps have to adhere to, despite the fact that most Jeep owners would probably agree with you, they have to adhere to the same federal standards and so on as all other vehicles. So yeah, they're just inherently going to be more complicated or complex than you want.
Right. And I think you make a fantastic point, and that's going to be a great conversation to have, because that is why the Jeeps have changed as much as they have. It's not necessarily because they wanted to. It is because of government regulation. The engines are the certain way because of that. The drivetrains are a certain way. The transmission, all of it. And they all have backup cameras now, which is weird for a Jeep.
Cool as heck. It is cool as heck. Now, even on my little pickup truck, it has a backup camera, but it's the size of the old GPS units. My old TomTom. It's not big, but it just gives you a little sense of comfort when you're backing up, that there's not a kid or a stroller or something behind you.
Or your podcast partner.
Because I would stop if I had you in
right.
Probably. I'd slow down at least. But if you were in my sights. But Lisa's car has a massive comparative screen, and it is so cool. I mean, just being able to define what's behind you and give you that clarity, it's an awesome invention.
We'll have to get into that and the whole theory behind why they're getting bigger, which has to do with our dependence on things like big phones and iPads and stuff like that. But that's a whole conversation that we're going to have with, what's his name again? Forgive me.
Mike O.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. I do think it'll be next week, but you never know. We're trying to work out schedules now. So I hope you guys will come back, tune in for that. You learn all about my nerdiness in Jeeps, and someone who actually knows more about Jeeps than I do, because I don't really know as much as I let on. I don't. I should.
Please,
I love them.
Don't cut yourself
I want
down.
them.
Come on.
I will, because that's what I do. Anyway. We will be back next week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Go check us out on all of our social media networks. You can get there by going to our website at PoddiMouths.com. We have links to all of our social media sites there, as well as ways for you to listen, whether you want to listen from our website or if you want to head over to your favorite podcast listening tool or app. Please do this. So leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you and hear what you think about any topic that we've discussed either today or in the past. John, any other parting words?
Listeners, if you have topic ideas or stuff that you'd like us to talk through or talk about, or just stuff that you'd like to talk about, we will have you on. If you say, I always wanted to be on a podcast, but I'm never, this is the one. So drop us a note. We will have you on. We'd love to hear your take on anything about which you are passionate, or you can just pretend to be passionate like we do.
Well said, sir. Very well said. All right, folks, have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Nick. See ya.